Hello, and welcome back to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way with God at the center, with real world first hand experience. Before we get into the bio, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast if you've listened before. Make sure you subscribe so you get the latest episodes. Your one stop shop to find out more and support the podcast is goodshepherdtraining.com. Again, goodshepherdtraining.com. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, a teacher, a preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government for a three-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other three-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, a teacher, a preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. I think this is going to be entitled 6.5, the Creedmoor Craze, or something very similar to that. Now, let me start off with a few things, and you're getting my opinion and my thoughts on the 6.5. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start by saying that I really like the 6.5, and that I didn't really like it at first. And I guess the reason I didn't really like it at first, if I can put this into, I guess it wasn't a logical reason, but I've always liked 6.5s. I really like the 6.5 by 55 Swede. If you look at the ballistics on that and the ballistics on the 6.5 Creedmoor, you'll know why I liked it. This 6.5 by 55 Swede came out in the 1800s. I'm going to say that again, the 1800s. It's a fantastic cartridge. It was chambered in a fantastic rifle. It has maybe killed more moose than any other round on the planet. I don't know that you could prove that, but it certainly killed a large number of moose in Scandinavia and in other places. The 6.5 by 55 Swede is a legendary, outstanding round. Likewise, the 260 Remington I've really liked for a long time. The 260 Remington is fantastic, which ballistically is almost identical to the 6.5 Creedmoor, and it's been around for decades. It's basically a neck-down 308 to 6.5. And both those cartridges are fantastic, and I've really liked those. And the reason I didn't really like the 6.5 Creedmoor when it first came out, because I figured it was just, I guess, for common vernacular terms, a Johnny-come-lately. I was like, what does this do? The 6.5 by 55 Swede or the 260 Remington, what does it do that they don't do? And I guess, honestly, for the average shooter and average hunter, nothing. They don't do anything that those other two cartridges don't do or can't do, especially if you give them the same barrel length and twist rate and all those things. In fact, I believe that the 6.5 Creedmoor has slightly less powder capacity, which means slightly less potential than either one of those cartridges. I could be wrong about that. I don't have the ballistics charts in front of me. So I was a little against it at first, but I guess what changed my mind is firsthand experience. I wanted a Kimber Adirondack. If you've listened to the episode A Guide's Rifle, or if you haven't, you may want to go give that a listen, A Guide's Rifle, I got a 6.5 Adirondack for professionally hunting and guiding. And I got it because it's a very nice bolt-action rifle chambered on basically a copy of the pre-64 Winchester, which is legendary action. Legendary for its controlled round feed, for its reliability, it's a legendary action. And Winchester got away from that for a while, and Kimber kind of copied it and made it smaller and lighter with the better metal technology of today. So I got that rifle for that reason. And I'll be honest, I first wanted it in 308, but I couldn't find one anywhere in 308. But I could find one at a local gun store that they had for quite a while that I had eyeballed in 6.5 Creedmoor. And I said, well, that 6.5 Creedmoor will do everything that I want it to do. So I might as well go ahead and get it. And I did. And I used it. And I slayed all manner of beast with it. And it is a fantastic cartridge. And it really changed my mind. Now, granted, I will concede that I could have done the same with a 260 Remington or with a 6.5 by 55 Swede. But a 6.5 Creedmoor, especially at the time, everybody was crazy for the 6.5 Creedmoor. And I think a big reason for that is the shooting competition community. And you heard my bio. I love shooting competitions. I cut my teeth on precision rifle. I really like shooting competitions. And this is way back before 6.5 Creedmoor was even a cartridge invented, or at least before it was anything more than a Wildcat. It may have existed in other forms back when I was doing stuff high in the precision rifle world, long before that. But anyway, I'm not against competition shooting, but that's what really made it popular. And for good reason, they loaded it for high ballistic coefficient bullets. They loaded it to fit with those high ballistic coefficient bullets in a standard, what I would consider standard, a 308 length action. And whereas the 260 Remington is basically a necked down 308, the 6.5 Creedmoor, for all intents and purposes, is basically the same thing. They just made the case a little bit shorter so you could put longer bullets in it in most common actions. And that was a smart move. And also, Remington had a horrible habit back in the day of chambering everything for a 1 in 12 twist. Well, to take advantage of those long high BC bullets, you really need a faster twist rate. And the 6.5 Creedmoor did that. And for those reasons, it really took off. And I think it came about at the right time. For a long time, Americans it's got to be 30 cal. It's got to be .30 or bigger for big game or for anything else. And that really was a flaw in our thinking. Americans often have this bigger is better mentality. Bigger is not always better. And the 6.5 Creedmoor, I think, came along at the right time. Because, like I said, there had been many 6.5s before it. many, many 6.5s before it. And they hadn't really taken off. But the 6.5 Creedmoor did, because it gets the job done with less recoil, with less ejecta mass. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. But it's a fine cartridge. And it bridges that gap seamlessly. It bridges the gap between competition shooting and hunting, which few other cartridges did. It does it fantastically. It does it with a decent amount of energy. It came out, and because of its explosion, it has a lot of really good bullet selection. It has a lot of really good potential for both hunting and competition shooting, and just going out and having a good time shooting. Let us not forget that shooting is fun. Shooting can be a lot of fun. I recently went out with a gentleman I was blessed to meet, who God put in my path, and I was setting in a rifle for him, and we were doing the 5200 which I would recommend for pretty much any rifle unless you have a good reason otherwise. And I was shooting his Savage 110 with the ultralight, they call it, with the carbon fiber barrel in 6.5 Creedmoor. And it was fantastic. It was ridiculously accurate, ridiculously reliable from the first round to the last round. It was a pleasure to sight in. It was a pleasure to shoot. And I have no doubt that with good ammo selection, if you put that bullet in the right place, it will do the job. And what else can you ask for a rifle for the let's say the avid American rifleman? There's a reason that the guide, when I did that episode titled "The Guide's Rifle," that 6.5 Adirondack of mine, it's probably my go-to hunting rifle still. It's a fantastic gun. It's a fantastic cartridge. It's kind of ironic. I think that a lot of the reason the 6.5 took off and became popular really doesn't apply to the average hunter or the average shooter. Out of all the beasts I've slain, I think I have taken one elk past 300 yards. That's not the kind of hunting that I do, kind of hunting where you're 700 yards away with a rest, the animal doesn't know you're there. I like to spot and stalk or still hunt. I like to use the senses and talents God's given me to creep up on an animal, even if I see it. And have you heard my bio? Been blessed to be a very good shooter, a master of the rifle and pistol. But I try and get closer to ensure that I can get a good first round hit in the kill zone. That's not the kind of hunting that I do, and I think most Americans rarely take shots past 300 yards on big game. So I think a lot of the reasons that the 6.5 took off doesn't even really apply to the average American shooter or hunter. But I guess it doesn't matter in the end, because the 6.5 is a fantastic cartridge. The 6.5 is a fantastic round. Before we wrap up, we'll get into a little bit of the nerdiness of the 6.5 Creedmoor. 6.5 Creedmoor came out in 2007, so a very modern cartridge. It's based not on the 308, but rather the 30 Thompson Center, which itself was a good round, but never really took off. But a good round in and of itself. Based on that, a couple of common loadings listed, and this is from Wikipedia. And so 120 grain AMAX, which is a pretty common loading. That 120 grain is a pretty common loading here in America. And that's going to just over 3,000 feet a second, 3,020 per the numbers I have in front of me. And the 140 grain Hornady ELDX, which is also a very common loading. I've seen that quite a bit. That's going at 2,700, and that's putting out about 2,283 foot-pounds of energy. So, again, talking about the numbers, they're not that impressive. They're not really anything special compared to a 6.5 of 55 Swede, which came out in the 1800s. I'm looking on the same Wikipedia. I looked up the 6.5 by 55, and it's got 140.4 grain at 2850 for 2,540 foot-pounds of energy. And again, that round came out in the 1800s. But those aren't the only numbers that are important. Again, I think they really took the lessons learned. The reason I believe they adopted the 6.5 Creedmoor, why that became a cartridge for competition shooting, which was what it was developed for long range. They took the lessons learned. They put it in a good fast twist rate barrel to begin with. You didn't have to get a custom twist rate barrel. And they made the cartridge short enough that you could get the long, high BC bullets that the 6.5 is kind of famous for and chamber them in a standard length action. So really no crazy thing there, but just a lot of really good sound decisions went into the development of the 6.5 Creedmoor. And I guess whatever the reasons were that it became so popular, it is a fantastic round. Like I said, I'll go full circle to what I said in the beginning. It is a fantastic round. It bridges the gap between competition shooting and tactical shooting. It would be great in military and police applications. It would be great in most hunting situations. It would be wanted a one go-to center fire rifle of whatever that might be for you, whether it would be a semi-automatic AR-10 platform, my favorite, the Scar Heavy. If you wanted a one large center fire rifle caliber, you'd be hard-pressed to make an argument for anything being better than the 6.5 Creedmoor. There's several cartridges that you could choose. Personally, still like the 308. But I don't think you could argue that anything will be better than the 6.5 Creedmoor. So I'd say, in summation, a fantastically well-balanced, well-thought-out cartridge for the American rifleman. A fantastic sword to defend life and freedom. A great cartridge, a great round. Just some thoughts from a simple man on the 6.5 Creedmoor. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, remember, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment so you can get future episodes when they come out. Leave a review of the podcast. If you're listening to this on iTunes or a bunch of others, scroll down to where it has the stars, hit some. If you want to write a review, I'd really appreciate that. It helps others, from what I understand, that's true in the algorithm, to see the podcast come up or searching for podcasts. You think this message, more important message of following God and the messages of self-defense, self-protection, being a man, if you think those ought to get out there, please consider doing that. And if you want to support financially, I hope that you consider going to goodshepherdtraining.com, the one-stop shop. It's got the other podcasts we do on there, Alpha Male Podcast and Simple Man Sermons, if you care about the important stuff. Go to goodshepherdtraining.com. Consider going to Patreon. For the cost of a fraction of a box of ammo, you can support this. Used to be for years I did this at a loss. It cost me money. By God's grace, recently we have been making a profit at this. Used to be I would literally just talk into an iPhone. Really no editing other than pausing it when I wasn't talking. By God's grace, there's a laptop now and an actual microphone. There is some, although I'm not an expert yet at auto editing, there is some audio editing that goes into the podcast now. So hopefully the quality is a little bit better. Maybe I'd put out a couple episodes a year. Now, by God's grace, it's several a week. It comes from you guys supporting. So again, for the fraction of the cost of a box of ammo, consider supporting. And if not, please continue to listen. They're free to listen to, and I like it that way. Whatever you want to do, don't feel guilty about it. Thanks for listening. Tactical tip I'm going to put out there is very germane to today's topic. I've mentioned it or both of these things before, but I think they bear repeating again. Once you get your rifle sighted in, take a silver Sharpie or a regular Sharpie, depending on what you have or what color your gun is, and just mark all the screws in your scope mount, on your optic, on your sights, that if they move, that you'll know. Whatever the zero is on your scope on your rifle, mark that as well, so if it moves, you know. Also, you may want to take a pencil, just a simple pencil, and write on your gun your dope. Your dope is meaning the settings on your rifle, meaning it's dead on at 50, dead on at 200, this low at 300, this low at 400, and write that on the rifle with that particular load. Or you could just take a piece of that Right in the Rain paper, write all your dope card out on it, and tape it or put it in the stock of your firearm. That way you have it. That way you're not guessing if you ever have to take a shot. Thanks for listening to this episode of Gunfighter Life, and have a blessed day.